Okay. Hello, this is Sue with Irreversibly Moi, and today I am absolutely delighted to introduce to you Flora Bowley. And I know that most of our community here will not need much of an introduction, as I'm sure you're all quite familiar with Flora and her work, but she is an artist, an author, a speaker, and an all-around inspiring gal. So welcome, Flora, and we're so happy to have you here at Irreversibly Moi. And why don't you tell us a little bit about you in your own words?
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Susan. Thanks for having me here. Well, my career as it is in this moment looks a lot different than it did, say, 5 years ago. So I guess I'll backtrack just a little bit to say I worked as a painter, primarily selling my work in galleries and doing prints and online shows and things like that for quite a number of years before I made a big career change, which was to start teaching my painting process to other people through in-person workshops and through an online course that I offer. And I also wrote a book sort of at that time when I was making that transition. And so my book's called Brave Intuitive Painting, and it came out in 2012. So nowadays, I am doing sort of a combination of all those things. I still do a lot of painting on my own, and I've recently sort of switched some things about my workshop offerings because I have been teaching all over the world really in the last about 4 years. I've been doing a lot of traveling and teaching in gorgeous places and having really lovely retreats. But in all honesty, I got a little burnt out on the how much I was away from home and all the travel. So I made a big transition where I rented a space where I'm sitting now in Portland, Oregon, which is my home base. And so now I'm teaching workshops here in my new studio, which has just been really great. So far I've taught two, and I've got more scheduled for this year. And then I'm continuing online programs and right in the middle of a new website and starting to I will be soon offering quite a few new programs online. So staying pretty busy with all those things.
Sounds like it. And actually, coming to one of your workshops out there is on my bucket list.
Oh, good. I would love to have you.
So I'll get there. I'll get there. I'm shooting for this year. So
Oh, great.
now, how long have you been an artist, and is it something you've always been interested in, even as a child?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that, when people ask, like, how long have you been doing art? It's like, since I can remember. Like, it was always the thing that I loved the most. And honestly, the thing that came most natural to me, I was like the art teacher's pet in high school and then like went on to college. And it was just always the thing that really I was most interested in. So as a result, it's the thing I kept pursuing and kept pursuing. But to be totally honest, I never, back then, like growing up, I never thought I could actually be an artist as a job. I thought that was reserved for these very special 10 people in the world or something. And I think honestly a lot has changed over the years with the internet and all the different ways that we can be artists now. So I'm grateful to be living in this particular time because
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just such a different world, I think, than when I was a kid growing up. It seemed really like this impossible feat. So yeah, I did start. I did lots of other jobs. I was a massage therapist and a yoga teacher and a
Wow.
waitress and like a million other jobs for
I
many
think
years
you
as
need
I
to
was.
be. I think you need to be a waitress at some point in your life. Everyone. So
Yeah,
you can
I think
feel
so.
the pain, and I think it makes you a better consumer too, because you
Yeah,
can understand a lot more when things don't always go right when you're out to dinner.
exactly. Yeah, no, I did my time. It was about 10 years of waitressing. So certainly didn't become an artist overnight or become a full-time professional overnight.
Right.
But I did take like just a long, like many years of more and more of that and less of the other things. And then eventually it was about 10 or so years ago that I did become full time. And yeah, so that's my story.
That's exciting. Now,
So,
I'm very familiar with your canvas work and your method, your brave intuitive painting. Do
Yeah.
you do any other type of art? Do you art journal? Do you work in other mediums?
I have dabbled over the years in a lot of different things, and I have a BFA, so I did, in college, I did all the sculpture and ceramics, and honestly, I could totally imagine like looping back to some of those mediums at some point in my life, but I've really focused on painting, primarily. I don't really art journal so much, although I think it's so great that people do that. I've really just been an acrylic painter for gosh, like over 20 years now, and unlike many things in my life where I've like explored all these other things, like in terms of my art career, it's been pretty it's been pretty focused, I guess you could say. I think I can stay interested because the process that I work with is like never something that gets
Right.
predictable or like any kind of boringness. Like it's always like I'm always on the edge
Right.
of how's it going to go, because it's this real mystery kind of place. And so I think that I can really attribute that to why I've just like continued to paint for all these years. So yeah.
It keeps it fresh. Yeah. Every time you tackle another project or another canvas, it's something new.
It
So
is. It truly
that's
is.
exciting.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be an artist and wants to pursue it as a means of income?
Good job. Yeah. Well, the first thing I always, say is like just to do a really like truthful check-in with yourself to see if this is truly like your passion. Like because to be honest, it's not an easy job. It's not an easy way to make a living. And so one of the ingredients that you really need is just that like driving passion to do what you do. And so I think if you start there, you're in a really good place. And
Mhm.
then I think the other things to really, understand is that there's a lot of business stuff involved as well. Like you have to be able to communicate well with people, stay current with letting people know what you're doing. And really, this again, like in this day and age, there's so many ways, especially online, to stay active and involved. And it really is, I mean, it's not maybe necessary for all artists to say engage in social media and that kind of thing, but I'd say more and more it's important that you're just like having an entrepreneurial spirit, where you're
Absolutely.
willing to put yourself
Yeah.
out there and you're willing to put in the time. I think that's actually the thing that I see the most now that people don't want to do, and that is just to understand that first of all you need to put in the time to find your own way with what you're doing as an artist. Like
Right.
don't expect to take a workshop and then be a professional artist.
Sure.
It sounds funny to say that, but you'd be amazed at like how
Oh,
often
I'm sure.
we just people get excited and the most important thing is to show up and do the work, and like really spend the hours in your studio and like really like own your craft and be a master of your craft, and then be willing to, yeah, like I said, kind of put it out there in the world and stay the course, because there's always gonna, I can't tell you how many things I got rejected from along the way, and shows and grad school,
Yeah.
many things, but I just kept painting, and
That
that's
builds
what
up
you
the
need.
resilience. And I'll bet there's days when you don't even get to paint or paint very much because there are so many other things and business things that need to get done. So it's all
Absolutely.
part of it.
Oh, yeah. This is, yeah, so true. It's if I can paint 1 or 2 days a week, I'm happy.
Right? So, what inspires you to create? Like, what just kind of, not necessarily what motivates you, but when you're looking at a canvas and you're pulling from within and you're using your intuition, as I understand somewhat of your process, what do you draw from?
Well, there's kind of two ways that I can answer that. Like one is that I'm just like really interested in color and the way that colors work together. Like that's always been a passion of mine. I'm really interested in always finding new ways to work with color. Um, and imagery and shape and composition. Like there's those sort of like art school things, I guess, that it's just this I'm drawn to working with. But then there's like I mentioned before, the process itself is something that, so the process, for anyone who's listening that doesn't understand what I do, it is basically letting go of a plan before you start. So you kind of clear the slate of having like preconceived ideas of what's going to happen, which is amazing because it takes away the pressure to create what you have in your head or whatever. Right. However, it opens up a world of possibility when you don't actually have like a distinct thing you're trying to make. But it also involves really embracing the mystery of that and letting go, and being brave and just trying new things and trusting. Trust is really at the core, trusting that eventually your painting will start to emerge from all of your brave moves and all of your your intuition leading you in different ways. But it's very rare for me to have a painting that doesn't go through a phase that is just completely like a mess, where it's just like, has no idea what it's doing. I'm like turning the canvas in all these ways, and the color, I'm just, it's like, I don't know. But, because I've painted so many times, I actually understand now that phase is really important. Sure. And so if it doesn't happen, it's almost like I'm not being like on the edge enough. I'm doing something that's maybe too predictable, because that process of figuring it out and having it be challenging is like where the is in the creative process, I think. So
I think that's one of the reasons that I'm so drawn to you. You're one of the artists that I admire the most. And I think one of the reasons is because of your approach to painting, which is so opposite of how I am. I'm a planner. I usually don't like to sit down until I know what I'm going to do. And it's something that I'm really having to work on, to try to let go of any preconceived notions and just draw from within. And it's extremely challenging for me.
Absolutely, and you are not alone, my friend. It is so very it's very it's really hard. It's not an easy thing to embrace, especially if you are prone to planning and such. Absolutely. An interesting thing is there's this other end of the spectrum. I see two types of people often, where it's like yourself, where it's a little hard to let go in that way and trust. But then there's also people that are very comfortable in that, but they're not as comfortable making commitments and like moving the painting forward in a way that you need to do in order to bring a painting together. So it's not about just like wild throwing paint around forever. It's like the process actually requires you to also make conscious choices about, okay, I'm going to use this color, I'm going to use this image, and actually, commit to those things. But the key is to stay open to change. So you're like making a commitment, but you're not locking yourself in. And so that's how, you can actually move between those worlds a bit, where like people sometimes say things like, oh, is it okay if I want to paint a girl or something, like a face? And it's like, absolutely. Like, paint the face, and then just notice, is it working? Do you want to keep working with that? Maybe you want to turn the face upside down and something even more interesting happens that way. So that's really the key to the process, is like making those commitments, having a plan kind of in the moment, and then staying open to change.
Yeah, and that's something I think that I'll have to continually work toward. Just all the more reason I need to get out there and come to one of your workshops. We talked about color a little bit. Do you tend toward using certain colors more often than others?
I definitely have my favorites, but my favorites will change, over time. Like there's some colors I used to just love, and now I hardly touch them. And so every time I go to the art supply store, I'm always trying to buy some new colors that I've never before. Just, it's one of it goes along with just not wanting to get in a predictable pattern. I don't want to always use the same colors. It's just, it takes that that exploration of finding out how colors work together out of the equation if you kind of know exactly already. So yeah, but there's certain things that, you know, I've had hanging around on my palette for a long, long time.
Do you think
Yeah.
that someone who's just starting out, starting to put paint to canvas, do you think that they need to use a certain brand, or do you think that any type of acrylic, as long as you're doing it and you're actually playing and learning, is okay? Or do you think that the brand really makes a difference?
No, I think, I mean, when I first started painting, I couldn't afford really anything except like house paints and, you know, the cheapest stuff. And you have to work with what you have, and that's absolutely fine. And really, if you are in that place of just being a beginner and learning, you know, it might not make sense for you to spend all the money on the best paints, right? However, there are certain colors of certain brands that there's just no other way to get the vibrancy, you know, of these colors because of the quality. And so I do see sometimes people fighting with wanting it to be vibrant like my paintings are, where I'm using the top end paints and they're using the bottom end paints. And it's just like, but a lot of, you know, a lot of the underpainting and a lot of colors, you can get a great effect with the cheaper paints. Sometimes I just suggest, even if you got a couple, like Golden is the brand I use the most, and even if you got a couple Goldens, you know, they could add those little pops that you're looking for. So, you know, to answer your question, I'd say use what you have, and then if you can splurge here and there, it can be well worth it.
Absolutely. And then you find what works for you too. Because
Absolutely.
certain paints may feel better to you when you're in the
Yeah.
process of others.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Again, with colors, you mentioned that the colors that you go toward all the time change. They evolve with you as you
Yeah.
evolve. Today, what are your top 3 colors that you go toward?
Top 3 colors. That's a hard choice. I love so many colors. I'm really into gray right now, which is maybe surprising because a lot of my paintings are very vibrant and colorful, but I'm really enjoying gray, like juxtaposed with really vibrant colors. And I'm loving like gray and yellow, and I love fluorescent colors right now too, like just little, again, like little pops of fluorescent colors. There didn't used to be fluorescent colors available in paint, so it's kind of a fun thing that's developed over the last few years. So yeah, I'd say gray, yellow, and fluorescent.
Okay, that's great. I've been playing with gray a lot lately too, and I find that whenever I'm experimenting with something in the art studio, it makes its way into my house. So I
Yes.
started to play a lot with teals and aquas and gray, and then lo and behold, I decided my bedroom needed to be painted. So I have 2 walls that are aqua, 2 that are gray, and I have splashes of bright orange.
Yeah,
And
nice.
so
Complementary colors.
yeah, I think that my family gets worried when I go through a new color phase because they worry which room we're going to to have to paint.
Right.
So besides paint, what are your favorite mark making tools or tools that anybody could use to try different effects and experiment with their paintings?
Well, it's interesting, you know, I mentioned like I used to just be able to afford like house paints, and I also used to only be able to afford foam brushes, like the hardware store, like wooden handle, you know, brush. And so that's actually a tool that between the foam brush and my hands and a spray bottle, water spray bottle, those are like my 3 tools that I can't live without.
Yeah.
Other things kind of come and go, and I play around with lots of different ways of making marks always. But this, yeah, the foam brush, my fingers, and the spray bottle are sort of, and like rags. I use a lot of rags. Those are really, they're not very sophisticated tools, but they are what makes up, you know, most of how I paint. So,
But I think
yeah.
that's comforting for a lot of people. You know, most of our community, they're people that love art, but aren't necessarily famous artists. So knowing that there are household items that you can use to experiment with and come up with some absolutely incredible canvases, that's exciting. I think.
Absolutely. I never spend more than, $5 on a brush. When I do buy like actual paintbrushes, I just get the I don't know. I just have noticed over the years that when I do splurge on those nicer brushes, for the way that I handle paint specifically, it doesn't really matter. Other styles of painting, I know it's like you really want to have top quality brushes, but yeah, I'm pretty wild with my brushes, so I just end up ruining the nice ones.
Sure. Sure. Um, can you tell our community a little bit about what is brave intuitive painting?
Well, I'd never really come up with those words together until I wrote my book, and that ended up being the title. And it really rings true to the process, and that is that there is this element of courage and trust, and like not like I've said, like not going through like a step-by-step painting process that's going to lead to this outcome that we all can predict, right? So when you let go of that and you step into this place of like trust and I don't know what it's going to have, that, like you said, it can be challenging, and what it really requires is bravery. It requires you to be brave. So that's the brave, and then the intuitive piece is really, also listening in and trusting that I believe we all have this inner wisdom that is real. It's there all the time, but we often are so up in our heads with some kind of dialogue that we can't even hear what our intuition is. It's like our intuition is generally very subtle. It's a subtle, like quiet, just knowing. I think everyone can probably understand. They've felt that at some point at least. And so if you can that's why I do like a meditation practice, and I really try to center myself before I paint so that I can listen. I can listen to those, and it's really just like urges. They come through as like urges, whether it's, an urge to use a color or an urge to, make a mark in a certain way. It's like just these little, it's like my soul's kind of calling me into action. So I think
Right. And I think
work with those two pieces. That sort of makes the foundation of the process.
it's really important to you talk about meditation or doing yoga before you work on a piece. That's something that I've only recently started to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it quiets my mind, because if not, I sit in front of the canvas with the paints out and I have an intention to paint, but instead I'm thinking, did I take the meat out for dinner yet to defrost? Oh yeah, that's right, I have to pay the water bill. Oh, don't. But if you take the time to ground yourself and let all of the outside
Yeah.
fade away, then you're more open to what the energy or the universe or what your soul is trying to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of the creative process, especially this particular style of painting, as it's a great practice in being present. Because if you get too far ahead of yourself, or if you're thinking about other stuff, it really gets in the way of what you're doing. And so it's this amazing like opportunity really to just like be as present with where you're at, with your color choices, and even like how you're holding your body and how you're moving your body. All those things to me are things that I teach in my workshops. And it's awesome because the more we can practice presence on the canvas, the more we go into our lives, and we have we've been flexing that muscle really, and it's easier. And same with intuition. Or intuition,
So
if you
painting almost becomes a spiritual practice.
yeah, I really think of it that way myself. I know it's not that for everybody, but it certainly can be.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that really irreversibly moi is a big focus on, is how you can use art, and whether that's art journaling or it's painting or it's mixed media, whatever your chosen is, and to use it to heal, to grow, and to thrive. And I truly believe that art in all its forms can be used for all of that.
I
So,
believe so. Yeah.
so what are some other artists that you admire?
Gosh, I've got people that are my friends that I admire, and then I have people that I've never met that I admire. So there's like circles upon circles. But you know, some of my close friends are Pixie Campbell. She does some great like shamanic painting kinds of work. Alina Hennessy and I are definitely like soul sisters in terms of what we practice and teach. Yeah, my friend Lindsay Links is someone I do a lot of collaborative painting with, and so she brings a really cool element into our work that's very different than my own. Yeah, and then there's the art heroes I have like Cy Twombly and Mark Rothko, Bert,
Right.
Georgia Keefe, Frida
Mm,
Kahlo. We
right,
go on and
right,
on.
for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any products or courses on the market now that maybe we don't know about? I know that at the time we're talking, but maybe not necessarily by the time this airs, I believe that you have your Bloom True. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a 5-week online painting course called Bloom True, and I run the course like 2 or 3 times a year. There'll be a course in January, February, and then another one like closer to the summer. So there's always one for sale on my website because we just we start one and then people can register for
Yeah,
the next one.
right.
And it's kind of my like soul project. I've just dumped everything into that course over the last couple years. My process on the canvas, and then there's quite a bit of like what we've been talking about in terms of the art as a spiritual practice. There's just a lot of content in the course, and a really nice community that springs up all around the world to take it, and everybody gets
I'm
together in a
sure.
Facebook group and really cool connections are made. It's awesome.
I'm
And then I'm
sure.
working right now on another online product, which is more of a monthly. I'm calling it Studio Diaries, and it's basically just lots of video of painting, and then whatever is sort of currently inspiring me, I'm going to put it into a monthly subscription program where people can just kind of have that ongoing inspiration. Because I often hear people take the e-course and then they're like, wait, I need more
Aw.
inspiration. So I wanted to offer something that at a low price point that can be something that people like just stay inspired through. So so that's coming. I also have a Bloom True Boot Camp, which is a 30-day program that just gives you a new prompt every day for 30 days, and it's all about getting your creative space set up and getting just going. I think a lot of people like that's what I hear is like they want to do it, but they need some inspiration and guidance around how to start. And so the boot camp offers some practical information and then also a lot of tips on my painting process. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun, and that's $39. So
Oh, that's awesome. That's really affordable. So for someone who wants to dip their toe in the water and
yes.
just get started, that's a nice introduction to get them going, and then maybe they'll be confident for the Bloom True. And the
Yeah.
Bloom True is, if I think I might have missed it for January, but I am the next time you offer it, I am not missing it. The time
Great.
has not worked for me for various reasons,
Yeah.
but I'm ready to go.
Good. Love to
Um,
have you.
well, thanks.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? You talked about some things that you have currently. What are your do you have anything that's just, oh, one of these days I'd love to?
Well, one thing that is feeling really exciting is that I have this new studio, and it's like a bigger space than I've ever had before. I've worked in a lot of like pretty small studios, so I got this space to teach workshops in. So it's like 1,800 square feet, like really big. And so one thing I'm really excited to do is to start painting some much larger paintings because I just have the space. So I just actually ordered a bunch of panels from a carpenter that I work with who's going to make these like, more like 7 foot by 6 foot kinds of surfaces. So that's like super exciting for me in
That
terms
is
of,
exciting.
yeah. Um, so that's happening, and then I'm excited about the new website I'm putting together and the new monthly program that just feels really in alignment like with how I want to start to offer content. It feels like it'll be just more raw, sort of in the moment, versus like a really produced course, because
Right.
it's going to be more like me just in front of a camera, like when I'm inspired, just me and the camera, chatting about, new techniques or new like new color combos or whatever, whatever it is. So I'm excited to do something that feels really different in that way, and have it just be this ongoing thing that people can tune into when they want. So
That's exciting. Yeah,
yeah,
that's exciting.
yeah.
So I will make sure that everyone has links to you where they can find you.
Thank you.
Wherever we can find things on your website, and I'm sure that everyone will want to follow you on all your social media sites. So we'll be sure to include that underneath this video.
Great.
So before we wrap up, we have what I call fun tidbits, and just a few questions, kind of rapid fire,
Okay.
no thought, about your favorites.
Okay.
Not art related.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Favorite snack food?
No thought. Like smoothies, I would say.
Ah, okay.
Lots of smoothies.
Okay. Favorite musical artist? It could be
That's
more than one.
okay. I'm such a music person. Well, right now I'm really loving Bon Iver a lot, and Kirsten Pixton is a friend of mine that I've been loving her music and use it in my videos and things. And Rising Appalachia is another really great new two sisters that make some really beautiful music. So.
I'll have to check those out. I'm always looking for new music. I
Oh yeah.
try to shy away from the radio because it's all same old, same old.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so I'm always looking on YouTube for up and coming artists and
Yeah.
different genres. So awesome. Okay. Favorite non-art related book?
Non-art related book. Let me see. 100 Years of Solitude is one of my favorites. Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's like
Oh,
an
okay.
epic tale.
All right. I'll have to check that one out too. And what are you reading now?
Right now I'm reading a book that I probably should have read a long time ago, but it's oh my God, now I'm gonna forget the I'm right on the spot, I'm gonna forget the title of it. It's oh shoot.
What's it about?
It's by Starhawk, and
Oh,
it's her. It's the author of Starhawk, and it's her vision. It was written in the '90s, which is why I say I should have read it before, because it's her vision of sort of like the future, and just how a community can like come together in a sustainable way. But it's interesting. It's very like visionary from the '90s, but it's interesting
right.
to see. It's called The Fifth Sacred Thing. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah. So.
what do you think? Hey, was she right?
Well, some of the things are really spot on.
Mhm.
It's like either not yet happened yet, or it's just kind of, yeah, not gonna happen. But it's
Right.
just interesting. I'm always interested in how we are evolving as a people, and how we can sort of turn the tides from, being a destructive people to how can we, just have a more sustainable future. So it's a good read. It's a fun one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that in many ways society is moving forward in incredible ways, and in other ways we are destroying everything that we are inside. So,
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
really interesting time to say the least. There's
it is.
there's lots of different things at play. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
So,
seeing
okay.
more people pick up paintbrushes always makes me hopeful for the future. So, lots more, I
Absolutely.
think, people
And
being drawn to
again,
create.
because it is so intuitive and is so spiritual, that can
Yeah,
only be a good sign, right?
yeah, absolutely.
What's one TV show you can't miss?
Okay, so I don't have a TV actually, and
Okay,
I I haven't watched TV in like 20 years.
good for you. That's excellent. I think most of it's a bunch of garbage anyway, although I have to admit, on occasion I do partake, we'll say. but but that's awesome. Okay, coffee or tea?
Um, Coffee usually, although I take breaks and I do tea instead. I'm actually doing a month right now with no caffeine at all, if you can
Oh,
even imagine. I know
no.
it's been a little bit hard, but I have to say my energy is like much steadier now. It's just like good. So, but I do love
I'm
coffee.
impressed. I have a serious coffee addiction, so
Yeah, it's good stuff.
but I think it could be worse. And what is one odd thing that we probably don't know about you?
I think a lot of people don't know that I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is just like the heartland of the heartland.
Right?
So, yeah, I grew up going to every single home Packer game from the time I was like born till I was 18.
So you were
And
happy yesterday.
yeah, my boyfriend tells me that I don't watch football really, but he's like, your team won. I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I know everyone is just going to love getting to know you a little bit better, and
Yay.
we're going to give them all the different ways they can get in touch with you. And again, I thank you for taking the time to spend with us today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was super fun. Thanks.
Absolutely.